Oh, you can. If I keep my mana up and I have everything up, I'm not on degen, I can just eat that. That's sick. I can eat that. So, you want my CoC. Let's get into it. All right, go ahead, get that POB, get it up, look at it, but make sure you come back. We're gonna answer just about every one of your questions that you'll have. Please hold on to them. Check down in the, when you hover over the video, right, there's little chapters and stuff like that. I'll have the questions down there. I'll have the skills section, gems, items, and whatnot. Please hold them, look through the POB notes and whatnot, and check out the video. Please watch it, because a lot of questions will be answered in this video. Almost everything, as I've already had a ton of questions from my stream while making the build and whatnot. I feel like I've got them all, so make sure you definitely watch till the end. There's a lot of pitfalls to these CoC builds, but hey, the POB is God, all right? Please, if you need anything at all, the POB should provide it for you. So, before we get into the intricacies and all the nerd math and stuff like that, let's talk about what CoC is. CoC is cast on crit. It'll trigger a spell when you crit with an attack. That attack is going to be Cyclone, because Cyclone moves while attacking. It is the best choice for a CoC build. We're going to combine this with Cosprey's Malice, which will trigger a gem within the sword every time we perform a melee attack and crit with that melee attack. This is super, super powerful and very easy to get a ton of spells out, because we can put some spells in our Cospreys. We'll dual wield Cospreys, so we have 2 Cosprey triggers, and we'll have a 6-link cast on crit setup in our chest, so we'll have 3 different CoCs that we can kind of play around with. There is a cooldown. We'll talk about it later. Don't worry about that. All right, so how does my CoC hurt? Well, we're going to make it hurt through Indigon scaling. This is a little bit spicy, but it works very, very well, as Indigon is super powerful. Honestly, I think Indigon's a little bit busted. All right, but let's not get into that. All right, Indigon, you spend mana, your mana cost goes up, and how much mana have you spent recently in the past 4 seconds is going to increase your spell damage. So the more you spend, the more damage you do, and the more you spend, the more your costs go up. So it's this kind of ever scaling up within the last 4-second kind of system, where you're spending more mana, which makes your mana cost go up, and then you also have more spell damage. Super, super sick. And it's got this crazy mod on here that non-instant mana recovery from flask, also recovered as life. That is actually nuts. All right, so not only do we get a lot of damage from Indigon, we also get a lot of recovery from Indigon. It's super, super busted. We're gonna go over optimal proc rates, attack rates, and all of that later. You don't have to worry about that for the very start of the build, but it is something that you will want to figure out later on, so that you can get that huge boost of damage and a lot of boost in your frost bolts and your ice novas and whatnot. We're gonna need, without any exceptions, 100% hit and crit chance. All right, it could be 99. Let's be real. It could be 99. You cannot have this be like 90. It has to be like literally like 95 is sketchy. If you have 95 hit, that's really bad. If you have 95 crit, it's like, okay, you really should get it up, but you can technically play the build right. All right, an attack crit is going to roll accuracy 2 times. The attack rolls to hit, and then your attack rolls to crit. I cut this part off, but let's just talk about it. Then your attack is going to roll to hit the crit. So it rolls your attack hit chance 2 times, right? You have to hit with your initial attack, then you have to roll and succeed your critical strike chance, and then your critical strike chance needs to hit again. This is why accuracy is so important to have at 100% against non-evasive monsters. Most of the time, everything is going to be non-evasive, so just worry about your tooltip non-evasive hit chance on your Cyclone. All right, and of course, we're a crit build, so we'll scale off some critical strike multiplier. All right, so how does our CoC stay up through these super difficult encounters like Ultimatum and these feared boss encounters, hidden, you know, Shaper Guardian, stuff like that that you've seen at the start of the video? Well, it's going to be through Cloak of Defiance, giving us Mind over Matter and an extra 10% damage taken from mana before life. We also will get a Watcher's Eye that gives us another 10. So we'll have 50% Mind over Matter effect. That is really good because that's how we can get away with 3k life. Everybody always comes in and they say, oh my god, how are you surviving 3k life, Omega Low? Hey, I have 3k mana too, man. All right, it's like 6k life pool. If that's all you're looking at, all right? Don't even think about it being a 3k life build. Really, it's like 6,000, okay? Indigon is stupid, all right? I'll say it. Indigon's a little busted, okay? We get so much spell damage from Indigon, and we are also getting like 3,000 life and mana each second. That's really dumb. This mana recovered is taken from the 25 Exalt budget once you have a second cluster. Before this, it's about 2,600. But right now, at that 25x budget, you're going to have about 3,100 mana. And because of Indigon, that non-instant mana recovery, right? Non-instant means our enduring flask, our enduring mana flask, is going to give us 3,000 life and mana per second. If you played Cold BB Pathfinder last week, this is what we did as well. It's super dumb, but I love it. All right, it's so good because our life and mana just keep shooting all the way back up. It's so nice. We'll also have Pathfinder Flask Effect. This is also like super sick, and it's what lets us play a dope CoC build on a super cheap budget. We get stun avoidance from our flasks. We'll get up to 92%. We'll talk about that later. We take less elemental damage from Pathfinder and from a triple capped Wise Oak setup. We'll have physical damage reduction by increasing Taste of Hate's effect by 82%. That's dumb, all right? We're taking like 37, I think it is, 37? No, it's, yeah, 37, 36% of physical damage as cold damage. That's so silly, all right? It's so good. On top of course, you know, all the other defense we have, including dodge plus blind from Pandemonious. Everything's chilled, everything's blinded. Acrobatics, phase acro. We'll use Omeokon, which are these crazy pair of boots. I wanted to use these for so long. I think they're so dumb. Dude, you get 14 to 20 attack and spell dodge on your boots, and you get onslaught from them. They're so good. I mean, you lose some mana, but hey, as you can see, we have no problems keeping our mana up. We will also take Wind Dancer, so we take 20 less damage when we're hit, and later on, when you get an unset ring with your Assassin's Mark setup, you'll have Sigil of Power, which you can put down on the Conqueror, Sirus, some bosses, like maybe the Maven encounters, bosses where you do have like a second or two before the boss, you know, initiates or something like that. You probably won't be able to get Sigil of Power down on like a Guardian or something like that, but the Guardian Invitation, when they're initially coming out, you can do stuff like that, because it does take at least 4 seconds for it to get to its maximum effect, and that is when you take 19% less damage. There are a few other little defense layers in here, but, you know, let's not list all of them at once. All right, so this is why you want my CoC versus the CoC of other builds here. Let me just scoot down a little bit here. Assassin. Assassin's cool, man. Everyone always plays Assassin. He's cool, and he does a lot of damage. That's sick, and you can kind of get big circles. That's pretty nice. But Assassins are getting one-shot left and right. All right, it's softcore, but hey, come on, man. Like, no one wants to be dying in their ultimatums that much. All right, you have no damage reduction. I mean, you have a little bit. Okay, Assassin does have a little bit when there's like one monster nearby. All right, you got a little, but you also have no sustain until you invest those buco bucks into the build. Crit cap's a little bit easier than other builds, but honestly, it's not as easy as Pathfinder, all right? Occultist, she's cute and she pops stuff. That's cool. You get an extra curse and a cool pop, and you know, you make things take increased cold damage, and you're immune to freeze and chill. All right, that's pretty cool. Crit capping on Occultist is a little difficult. You kind of need Hatred Watcher Eye or Bottle Faith. Inquisitor, dude, he's old, and look at those TOOBAs over there. Yo, thank Big Ducks for that image. You have huge sustain with your life and energy shield regeneration. You can stack a bunch of life, stack a bunch of ES. You get easier crit cap and your ailment immune. Inquisitor, honestly, not that bad, but not as cheap, and you don't get as much damage reduction as Pathfinder. Dude, Pathfinder is literally wicked absolutely wild recovery. As I said before, you're hitting 3k life and mana per second. Huge damage mitigation from your Taste of Hate, Fizz reduction. Later on, we swap this for Basalt. That's fine. Still huge Fizz mitigation. You get triple capped Wise Oak. That Wise Oak, 10% less damage taken, that is scaled by Flask effect. So you're taking 18% less elemental damage on top of Pathfinder 6. That's a 24% less elemental damage taken. That's really, really silly. All right, super easy crit cap. We get crit cap so free on Pathfinder because we can use a critical strike chance on our flasks. If you want, hit me up at Tripolar Bear in game. Do not buy these, all right? Don't get scammed. I might start rolling these and throwing them up for like 10C or something, because the only ones up are super scam price. It's literally just a Cinder Swallow Unveil into a craft on your flask. So just at me, join the guild, at someone in the guild. I'm sure someone else has it there as well. Do not buy it unless it's a, you know, fair price. Like, I don't know, dude, 10, 20C. But the ones I've seen are like 1, 2 exalts. All right, it's a little bit much. You don't die. That's so cool, dude. It's a CoC build on a budget and you're not dying. All right, what more could you want? Honestly, you've got the damage, you've got some nice speed because you're using a Quicksilver increased effect, got the speed from Pathfinder, increasing that Quicksilver with increased effect with your flask effect. All right, you're getting so much move speed and you're ailment immune all the time because your flasks are up all the time. Dude, it's so cheap to start and it scales so well. I love it. I honestly love it. So, here we go. All right. Why Pathfinder over Scion? Okay. Pathfinder is amazing for a budget, okay? Pathfinder's super good. That flask effect helps cap your crit and res. You get a bit more attack and move speed. You have ailment immunity at all times, whereas Scion has ailment immunity while on consecrated ground, which is almost all the time, but not really all the time. You get flash charges on crit. This is kind of like training wheels for the build. If you're like a flask spurg like me, you know, it took a second to get used to not pressing my flasks every 5 seconds and instead pressing them every 10 seconds or more. So that flash charge on crit, super helpful, especially on bosses. Free bleed removal saves us corrupted blood on one of our jewels. Also, you know, saves us a flask mod, which is super nice because sometimes, you know, the corrupted blood, it doesn't do it 100% of the time. Sometimes you will get bled from some puncture move or, I don't know, some dumb boss, something or another. All right, so it's super nice to have that there. You have a higher chance to not consume flash charges on Pathfinder Ascendancy. Overall, the Pathfinder has way more defense, and it's got a couple of training wheels on there to help your budget CoC build out. Scion's great for damage, though. Once you get set up, once you got tons and tons of money, if you just want to blast, Scion's it, man. You get lots of extra damage from going Inquisitor. You get a little bit more damage from going Inquisitor. You're still ailment immune. You get even more damage from skill points and a little bit more damage from your pathing, all right? Scion, it's just a lot of damage, all right? It's like the assassin of Indigon CoCers. All right. Hey, boy, what'd it do? Why are we using Ice Nova and Frostbolt, man? Ice Spear's so good. Actually, it's not, all right? Ice Spear clear is awful. Even if you have Pierce, even if you have Anomalous, even if you put Pierce in your links with Anomalous, Ice Spear, it's awful compared to Frostbolt and Ice Nova. Also, look at the MTX, all right? Do you want to be playing the fish build or the cool blue circle build with huge explosions? All right, just look at it. It's by definition better. Ice Nova damage, literally better, until you start getting the extra projectile corrupted Cospreys with the enchant, with the awakened GMP in all of your links, all right? That's like 100 plus exalts right there. So don't even think about Ice Spear until you've got some nut money on top of like a 50 plus exalt budget version of the build. Ice Nova is going to be better in every way. Damage, clear, etc. Also in ultimatums, it's just way better. So let's talk about the CoC setup. Main links are going to be Ice Nova, cast on crit, inspiration to help crit, and giving us some LE damage. Cyclone, obviously, we have to have our attack there. Increased crit strike chance, we'll replace it later once you can afford it. But for now, we keep it to keep our crit capped. And LE focus. Cosprey's one is Hydrosphere to give us a cold exposure. You can use Frostbomb. Frostbomb sucks now. All right, Frostbomb is trash. Frostbomb takes forever to explode. It's never going to hit anything. And you get -5 extra cold resistance for all that trouble. Hydrosphere is where it's at. All right, Hydrosphere, it can hit so many times. It's out all of the time. And you know what? It only does a -10 exposure versus Frost Bomb's -15, but the consistency is much more important to me than, you know, a technical increase in POB numbers. Frostbolt with GMP. If you do GMP, you don't need Frozen Trail. We'll have enough Frostbolts out to proc both Ice Novas. So that's pretty cool. Cosprey's number 2 is going to be an Ice Nova with Power Charge on crit. This is the only way we get Power Charges until we get more clusters in the 25 Exalt version. If you check the POB, I'll have more skill kind of tiers there. But then we will link it with Hypothermia for a little bit more damage. This is going to be the very basic CoC setup that we're going to go over in the video. But in the POB, there is a much more in-depth 25 plus Exalt version, and then all the way up to the Ice Spear version. I have many sets of skills there. Our utility skills, super important. Put Vortex on left mouse button. This is how we get Indigon ramp. Archmage gives a base mana cost, a huge 1% of our mana, to Vortex. So that helps us scale Indigon like instantly. We also get Arcane Surge and Bone Chill. Bone Chill making them take increased cold damage based on the chill effect of the ability. So that is super good. Arcane Cloak means more Indigon ramp and a little bit of a shield. Indigon is how we get all of our damage, so Arcane Cloak sacrificing 70% of our current mana means a lot of damage. Frostblink is instant. You can cast this while channeling. That's really good. All right, go ahead. If you want, use Flame Dash. Fine. Try it out once, and then try Frostblink once, and tell me you want to use Flame Dash again. All right, Frostblink instant. That's really good. Auras. Zealotry. We're throwing that in Essence Worm, so it reserves no mana at all. Zealotry, this is how we get Conk Ground until Bottled Faith. We get extra spell crits chance and more spell damage. That's really good. Herald of Ice, just toggle it on if you have the MTX, or if you want a little bit of extra clear. Otherwise, you need to keep this off for bosses because, as we mentioned before, half of our life is pretty much our mana, so you're reserving 40% of what is effectively your life if you keep Herald of Ice on for bosses. I like to just throw it on for, you know, some maps and whatnot. And if I'm feeling a little safe in the ultimatum, I'll keep it on just to have that cool little extra clear. And of course, that cool MTX for Herald of Ice. Clarity. These are super good. Clarity, Precision, we want them 20. We have so much mana, and the Essence Worm, you know, increased reservation doesn't really matter too much for these. So Clarity, Precision, super good. We'll have the Watcher's Eye later on to take an extra 10% of damage from mana before life. Otherwise, before you have that, you're at 40% mind over matter effect. After, when you have that Watcher's Eye, you'll be at 50-50 between life and mana. Precision, yep, capping our accuracy and crit. Righteous Fire, you can actually keep this on, which is sick, because we have so much freaking sustain from our mana flask that we keep RF on at all times, taking advantage of Righteous Fire's innate more spell damage. I think it goes up to 39. It's actually stupid how much free damage we get from playing this build. We sustain this Omega easily. And then Vol Righteous Fire, just pop it right before the boss and then run in there because our recovery will instantly get it back up. Blood Rage, we're using this for Frenzy Charge generation and attack speed until later on. Later on, you'll see in the 25x budget version, to get Frenzy Charges on bosses, you'd have to get an Anomalous Blood Rage. That's like 8 Exalts. All right, that's a little bit much. Otherwise, you can get a Corrupted Cosprey's Malice that has Frenzy Charges after spending 200 mana. Well, we spend a lot of mana all the time. So that's a super easy one to get your Frenzy Charges for bosses. So Frenzy later on is really just for attack speed. All right, leveling. How do I level a CoC build? All right, please, God, do not level as a cast on crit. It's not gonna work. All right, this is my example of how you could level. Otherwise, you could do Caustic Arrow. But we have an example, Hollow Palm leveling, tree, skills, gear. In the POB, scroll all the way to the bottom. That is where I put it. We will use Smite, and we'll have a nice little aura set up there. Ignore the Assassin's Mark. That's just from our ring and whatnot. I've got to keep that there. But I've got a tree that's pretty close to the tree we'll be using for Pathfinder CoC, so you won't have to respec too much, but you will have to respec a little bit if you choose to do this. All right, let's talk about the 5 to 10 Exalt Tree very quickly, as there are some very important things that even transfer on to later parts of the build. So the main focus of the tree is getting the flask effect, max life, mana, and mana recovery from flasks, or just increased mana recovery. This is actually the wrong tree. This is the tree for Hollow Palm, so completely ignore this, my bad. Yeah, just ignore it. All right. The tree's in the POB, but I'll show the trees later on anyway. All right, let me get the tree up. You know what? I'll just show it right now. The tree for this build, for the 5 to 10, is going to be this. It's almost the same, except we're just getting mana flask effect everywhere. Or we're getting flask effect everywhere. We're getting the mana recovery from mana flasks and life and mana. The tree is super, super simple. Very key points are getting spiked concoction on medium cluster. This gives us 20 flask effect. Super, super important. Acro, phase acro, huge amounts of attack and spell dodge. Literally all flask effect on the tree. We need it all. And getting the mana recovery cluster trade links are in the POB for these mana recovery clusters. Super, super important that you get these, as this is where we get our life and mana recovery. Life and mana recovery means we don't die. Mana recovery means we do a lot more damage from Indigon. All right, here we go. Let's talk about the cooldown on CoC. All right, we have the link to the original post where I got this information from down in the description. If you don't take anything else away from the cooldown, just take away this one thing, all right, the TLDR. If you have 0 cooldown recovery rate, get 12.12 attacks per second on your POB. If you have 14%, do not go over 15.14. All right, no matter what, you don't go over any of these attack speeds. But 14% cooldown recovery rate is 15.14 right here. Okay, so 12.12 equals 0% cooldown recovery rate. 15.14 attacks per second in your POB, as it'll be off on your character sheet in game. POB is accurate, is going to be 14% cooldown recovery. All right. You'll want to get as close to the optimal attacks per second without going over as possible. Do not go over. If you go over, that is really bad because then you really start to get off. But if you're a little bit under, that's okay. Really, you want to try to hit that as much as you can, but just get super, super close without going over. All right. This second number here, you see there's two numbers. There's 7.57 and there is 15.14. We want to hit this second number here because we are dual wielding Cospre's Malice. This lets us trigger both Cospre's optimally, and it lets us trigger our cast on crit setup in our chest twice as well if we have a second spell linked in our cast on crit setup. This is really good because Indigon scales our spell damage a crap ton. And the cooldown is on the spell linked to cast on crit. It is not on the cast on crit gem. So, for example, this is going to be 15.14. I tried to do it in paint. All right, do not bully me. Cyclone dual wield alternates Cospre's, so you double your attack speed to hit optimal trigger. All right. So at 15.14 attacks per second, this means Cosprey 1 is attacking 7.57 times per second. Cospre's 2 is attacking 7.57 times per second, which means both Cospreys are hitting a combined 15.14 times per second. Now, this means on our body armor 6 link, if I only have one spell here, I'm missing an entire 7.5 second trigger chance. Now, we make that up later on once you hit this threshold. I think I force it on you around the 50 Exalt budget. 25x, you know, you can start working towards it, but I don't really force it on you until then. But here we have Ice Nova triggering 7.57 times per second and Ice Spear triggering 7.57 times per second. Our cooldown is this 7.57. So if you do not have the Ice Spear here, you have one extra link on your Ice Nova, but you're missing an entire other chance to proc something. So we take one link off of our body armor 6 link setup to have an extra huge boosted Ice Spear. Now this is only for single target bonus damage. Ice Spear, you can use something else if you want. I thought Ice Spear is pretty nice. It only does a couple extra little Ice Spears since we're not scaling the projectiles just yet, but it is still pretty nice to have on there. If you want, you could throw a Frostbolt, you could throw like Divergent Creeping Frost, you know, you could do any spell really that you want. It is up to you. I just like to have the Ice Spear there. So we're triggering both at the 7.57 because we have 15.14 attacks per second, and the 7.57 is the cooldown. All right. That is the whole cooldown recovery rate thing. We're going to talk about how we get to that attack speed threshold. So you need to get base attack speed, good rolls on your Cosprees. 14% is as high as it gets. If you can get that, that's totally fine. Otherwise, you'll just have to make it up later on. Blood Rage levels and quality, rare jewels with attack speed, and then attack speed with swords and dual wield. Your anointment is a good source. A second large cluster. I have dual wield cluster in there as an example of how you can get attack speed on your cluster setup. Points on the tree. Things like acuity are really nice. And then frenzy charges plus onslaught from Omeokon. All right, we cap our res on this build through flasks. Oh no, spooky. It's not that spooky though. A small amount on our jewels and resistance roll on our belt. In the start, it's going to be fire res. You have to get fire res on your rare belt. It sounds weird. Don't worry, man. It's all good. Our flasks last 11 seconds. All right, you have to hit your flasks once every 11 seconds. You, honest to God, should be doing that no matter what while you're playing anyway. So on Pathfinder, it's totally fine because our flasks, first, never run out, and second, are always up because we gain flask charges passively and we gain flask charges on crit. And you know what? As a little bit of extra training wheels, I threw a Watcher's Eye in there with gained a flask charge on crit while affected by precision as a very first cheap option for a Watcher's Eye. These are about 30C, and it'll be a little bit bonus training wheels for getting used to the res on flasks and etc. before you move on to a Watcher's Eye. 10% of damage taken from mana before life clarity Watcher's Eye. All right, let's talk about the weakness. If you play the build on the 5x budget, your single target's going to be pretty bad because you're running a 5-link as your main CoC setup, and you'll have no Pandemonius yet. Just keep that in mind. It's really not that bad. It's just bosses will take a little bit. But, I mean, it's a 5x CoC build. It's going to have, you know, some give and take somewhere. Once you get the 10x up and rolling, it's a lot better. And, oh my god, dude, once you hit 25, you're just set. You got to follow the POB. This is a weakness of the build. You have to actually follow the POB, all right, and get everything. I'm not joking. You have to get all the flask crafts. You have to line the flasks up exactly how I have them. Now, not in the right order, but with the right flasks, with the crafts, with the rolls. Everything needs to be set up correctly. You can't do Ellie Reflect. You can't stand in the fire, all right? Get out of dot pools. You can't be in them because dot is going to drain your life and mana. Once your mana is being drained, you will no longer have extra chance to ramp your Indigon, so your damage goes down, and eventually you're just going to die if you just keep standing in damage over time. All right, it's kind of obvious, but, you know, this is something that's happened to me in, like, a Shaper fight or something like that. I just stood in dot, and then I'm like, why is my mana going down? It's because I was taking damage. All right, Chaos Res. It's hard to come by. Our only rares are Ring and Belt. So check the Chaos Small Clusters. For 3 points and 1 Jewel Socket, you can get 63 Chaos Resistance. Check the expensive version for an example of the Chaos Cluster. You'll have to cycle through the trees until you find it. But that's how I got my Chaos Res, and that's how I got technically not 0, which is good enough to do the Feared. All right, how do we play this bad boy? All right, how do you play with your CoC? Press Arcane Cloak. This gives shield and lightning damage, and it helps you ramp your Indigon. You're going to hold the left mouse button down, setting Vortex to LMB, left mouse button. This is going to ramp your Indigon as well. Remember, Vortex linked with Archmage means your Vortex mana cost goes up a lot, which means you get a lot of Indigon ramp out of it. Pop all your flasks and keep them up. Do not use Arcane Cloak on bosses where you're going to take a lot of damage soon. Arcane Cloak, look at that. 75% of damage is taken from the buff, but it spends 64% of your current mana. So it does give you a pretty decent shield, but it does spend a lot of your mana, so it is a little spicy to use willy-nilly like that. Honestly, though, it's not that big of a deal because the shield is kind of up when you spend the mana. It's just something you got to be a little bit more careful with the Vortex. With Vortex, if you're doing bosses, sometimes I'll just right-click. I will not be pressing my Vortex. I'll lose some damage, but I'll make sure that my mana is very consistently up and it is not having spikes going down where I'm only doing or having roughly 3k life. We're going to use Blood Rage for frenzy charges and attack speed. It's super, super important that you level that up. Use Righteous Fire. If you're comfortable with the damage over time that you'll be taking from RF, make sure you use it because, dude, it gives you like 38% of your damage. It's really dumb. All right, frequently asked questions. We're going to go through some problems very quickly before we go into the path of building. So, my damage is bad. Well, your Indigon needs to have the roll 24 to 25% increased spell damage for every 200 mana you've spent recently. You got to have that because that's where we get a lot of our damage from. All right, you want a good roll there. You need to ramp your mana cost with your Vortex and with your Arcane Cloak to get your damage. Make sure you're using Righteous Fire. We sustain the damage. It's very, very important that you use it. Vol Righteous Fire should and can be used right before you start the boss fight. Some things it's a lot easier to use on. Some things you have to preload it a little bit early where you lose some damage window, but whatever. All right, on Minotaur, you enter the door. Visualize this. You enter the door. Your Righteous Fire is on. Your Vortex just used mana. Your mana goes up. You press Arcane Cloak. Then you press Vol Righteous Fire. Now your life and mana are up. Now you initiate the Minotaur fight. Do not press Vol Righteous Fire mid-fight. You will get one shot, all right? That's going to take away all your life and then clap. You're gone. If you're playing the 10 Exalt Super Budget CoC version, keep in mind, if you're doing the 5, you're on a 5 link. If you're doing the 6, you don't have Pandemonious yet. Pandemonious, super, super expensive. Once you get that set up, once you get all of that taken care of, your survivability and your damage is really, really nice. Past that point, your attacks per second and your cooldown recovery rate, if you get that lined up, that's another 30% more damage. That's why I dedicated like 3 entire slides and a paint presentation. It's that important. I'm not joking. All right, I get it, man. Math sucks, but like, hey, it's 30% damage. That's almost an entire link. If your crit and hit's not capped, that's why you're not doing a lot of damage. It's got to be super, super good. And if you didn't get your correct flasks crafted, you need your correct flasks. Ask me at TryPolarBear or ask the guild. All right, my CoC won't work. What's up with this? Please make sure your crit chance and hit chance are 100%. I can't stress this enough. Literally, they have to be like crit can be like 95ish, okay, on your Cyclone. Hit chance needs to be like 99 or 100. Kalisa's Grace and POB does not work. You need to edit it to be like this. The mana spent recently mod is redded out in POB. That means it does not work in Path of Building for some reason. It still doesn't work. But if you edit it to just be +2 crit strike chance, as we're always spending mana, then this is how you can see your real crit strike chance. Don't have Resolute Technique corrupted on a Cosprees. Please check your Cosprees Malice. If you get a Resolute Technique corrupted on Cosprees, you can't crit. The thing says you can't crit, all right? So you can't play your cast on crit build if you're not critting. Do not get that corruption. Your Cosprey gems need to be linked. You gotta have the right flasks, and you need to match them up exactly with what I have. There's no room to change the mods on these flasks. These flasks are very rigid, all right? Very, very rigid. You need to keep them how they are. Why aren't you agnostic? Well, as a mom Indigon build, our mana is the problem, not our life. We need to keep our mana up, as the mana is what we're spending all the time. We're not spending our life all the time. We're spending our mana. So 50% of mana is going, or 50% of damage is going to our mana and 50% to our life, while we're spending our mana on skills and whatnot. So we need our mana to be up just as much of our life as our life. And Agnostic is going to keep taking away a lot of your mana, especially when you have Righteous Fire on. So Agnostic is filling our life all the way up instantly, but then our mana is very severely lagging behind, which sucks because 50% of the damage is going to mana. So it's not that good to play with Agnostic on in this version of the build. If you want, you can grab it, but I did not like it at all. It's much easier to keep mana and life up instead of just life with Agnostic. What do I upgrade next? Well, the POP has gear, tree, jewel, and skill upgrade setups. So to guide you on the right path for what gems you should use, what enchants, what flasks, what jewels you can get away with, your attacks and your cooldown, all of this in the POB. Link to description. Generally, getting crit multi wherever you can, super good. Try to get it as much as you can. I did not include crit multi on some jewels just because they might be a little bit too expensive. But if you can help it, you should get it. If you don't have enough int, get more on your tree, on your jewels, or on your ring. When do you swap to Ice Spear? Well, I recommend you swap to Ice Spear as soon as you have enough money to buy a Hate Forge glove without selling all of your gear. Only then should you swap to Ice Spear. Now, all right, I need to preface this, okay? Am I saying that you have to buy Hate Forge to play the build? No, this is just a joke because Hate Forge is super fucking expensive. Okay, so this is just an example of something that's super expensive to make a joke of like Ice Spear costing a lot. All right, please don't comment about how you need Hate Forge to play the build or why do I need Hate Forge. All right, it's just a joke because Hate Forge is expensive. Okay. All right, stun immunity. Our flask craft. Look at that bad boy. 92% stun immunity. There it is. There's your stun immunity on your Cyclone build. The last little 8% can be from Phantasmal Cyclone, Stun Avoidance enchant on a jewel, or the 1 point before Heart of the Oak. Accuracy comes from Transcendent Spirit and Precision. This gets us to literally 99%. That last little bit can come from Anointments, random gear rolls, or the Acuity, attack speed and crit chance rolls right below Acro and Phase Acro. Our crit chance is coming from the Flask Craft, Conk Ground from Zealotry, increased crit strike, and inspiration gems in our 6-link CoC setup link. On our tree, our power charges, our Cosprees gives us 60 increased crit strike chance, and our precision gives us some crit. I died. Make sure your flasks are up, please. Do not press Arcane Cloak. We talked about this, but don't press it right before you take a bunch of damage. If you're feeling in danger, like we talked about before, just take your finger off LMB and just right click around. I do this when I'm doing stuff like the Trial Master, not the Task Manager, all right? You didn't get me this time. Please have warding on your flasks. Every single time I look at somebody who says they can't do red maps or they're randomly getting one shot, they don't have warding on their flasks. This means vulnerability and LA weakness are undercapping your resistance and making you take a bunch of increased fizz damage. That's really bad and that sucks, so don't do that. Enfeeble makes you do no damage. Temp Chains makes you really slow. All right, these are all awful things that you can solve with a big roll. Actually, it's not even a big roll. Just go Bestiary warding onto an Enduring Mana Flask. Minus max res makes Righteous Fire sustain a little bit more difficult. On these, you can still sustain. It's no problem. It just means your mana comes up slower. LE weakness maps just have a warding flask forehead. If you stood still, even on stone circles, I mean, you might die, man. You got to keep her moving. If you don't 1-to-1 my flasks, you're going to die. All right, you have to 1-to-1 my flasks. If you don't get enough mana recovery on medium clusters, your life and mana sustain is going to blow. You gotta get the mana recovery things on the mana recovery build. All right, please. I've seen some people say, oh, I got, I have some crit strike ones, or I've got some random stuff, or I'm trying to play Ice Spear early and I have projectile stuff. I'm not trying to call you out, but you are a pretty good example. All right, you need mana recovery. This is our life and mana sustain, which is pretty much just think of it as life sustain. All right, super important. Your mediums are devoted exclusively to liquid inspiration and distilled perfection, I think is what it is later on. Make sure Herald Device is off for bosses. This is only a small toggle that you can use to get your clear up until you hit the boss, then turn it off. If you keep forgetting and you're dying, just remove Herald Device. All right, don't worry about it. Unless you have MTX, then you have to keep dying. All right, any other questions? If you got any questions, please make sure you come get the new POB from the video description. I'm going to be updating the pacement, expanding the notes with the frequent problems people are having and questions that they are asking. And, dude, you've watched like, what is it, 40 minutes now? You yoinked my POB and you didn't click that red subscribe button. I actually can't believe it. You're wild. All right, please just subscribe, like the video. This took a lot of work, okay? Yo, help me out a little bit, man. Just do the free stuff, all right? I'm not even begging for money. All right, just click the free thing and click the second free thing. All right, it's cool.